They were like, not for us, the creators of Bane. So, yeah, Big Al presents. Someone say Batman 66? Yeah, hey, I will always give Batman 66 its props. That's Big Al's favorite Batman incarnation. It, I love Batman 66. I never understand people who want to crap on that. I get it, especially if you were a fan at the time and you didn't like what you might have seen as sort of a deconstruction, not a deconstruction, a parody of the character. But I don't really think the creators or producers were trying to parody the character in terms of let's make fun of this stupid character. I don't think that was the case. It was theater of the absurd. That was the genre they were going for. It's a legitimate genre. It's hilarious. Read Nikolai Gogol or, some of these people, The Nose and whatnot. But I can see how if you're a hardcore Batman fan from the comics, like Michael Ursulin, the guy, the executive producer, the guy who got, was responsible for getting Batman to the big screen, he was so mad, when he saw it. So I can kind of get if you were at that time or whatever, a real comic Batman fan and you didn't like what was going on. But for me, coming into Batman during the Batmania of 1989, man, I gobbled up every rerun I could of Batman 66, waiting for the Batman 89 movie to come out. And I knew there were different incarnations of the character, obviously, but the core of the character is still there, the core hero of the character. And man, I loved it. I love seeing so many cool villains on screen, actual super villains. That was great. Because that's one thing, the Superman was the first character. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Superman, The Adventures of Superman, was the first television series of a real proper cape and tights superhero. I think I'm right in saying that. Of course, they were serials. I think Captain Marvel was the first serial back in the day. But in terms of television shows, I think it was Superman. And there was a trope that you just never had super villains. Adventures of Superman never had a good super villain. They were always fighting gangsters, which is fine. Superman can fight gangsters and crooks and kidnappers. Wonderful, fine. It wasn't until the Superboy series in the 80s, that came from the Christopher Reeves movies that are spun off of that, the Superboy series that we actually had some of Superman's super villains on screen, on the small screen anyway. And but I think Batman 66 might be, again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just working from, flying by the seat of my pants here in terms of memory. But I think Batman 66 might be the first show that actually had the supervillains fighting the foe in terms of a television series. Even the Wonder Woman series in the 70s, 10 years later, didn't have supervillains. I think there was an attempt to do the Pied Piper with Martin Mull, the late great Martin Mull, who recently passed, which is so tragic. He did an episode where his character was kind of like a Pied Piper, but it wasn't, the villain from the comics necessarily in terms of the version of it. And in the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk never fought supervillains. It was always, the military or people that Banner would find out, out there on his run and whatnot. So, yeah, props to Batman 66 and the Superboy series. If you never watched the Superboy series, you can go find that online somewhere. If you're a Christopher Reeve Superman fan, that was really good. Not Christopher Reeves isn't in that show, but it's the same producers. John Haynes Newton, and who was the other one? There was one actor that started playing Clark/Superboy, but then left after the first season, and they got somebody else, or they replaced him. And they look the part. It looks like a young Reeve almost, and in that suit, in the classic Christopher Reeve suit and everything, So those were great. Studio Super, thank you for the super chat there. Said, I agree, and the characterizations in 66 are underrated. The characters are well understood. Penguin is a bird of class. Riddler wants to outsmart Batman, and Joker wants to cause wacky mayhem. You're right. Even for the theater of the absurd kind of, light touch that the movie or the series had, it got the villains and their motivations right. Their own particular little, quirks and nuances. King Tut, what a great villain, King Tut. There are a couple that are visually amazing, but didn't really get developed, like Mr. Freeze, Mad Hatter. They got developed later, especially in the Batman the Animated Series, really developed them well. A lot of people don't realize, though, Otto Preminger was the first actor to play Mr. Freeze. I think he came first on the series. A couple other people played him later, but Otto Preminger, the classic film noir director, did Laura. We did a whole rewatch of that on my channel. In Harm's Way, he's just done so many great movies. He did some horror stuff too in the 70s and whatnot, but classic director. He was the first to play Mr. Freeze, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Vincent Price is Egghead. What great villains there. But yeah, they all had like that sort of, a unique quirk that really defined the character. Good point. Okay, a troll's corrected me. George Sanders was the first Mr. Freeze, but Otto Preminger did. Maybe Otto Preminger was the next actor or whatever. Some of the villains, they had 2 or 3 actors that would portray them over the arc of the series. Most notably, obviously, Catwoman with Julie Newmar and Lee Merriweather. Thank you, Dr. Y. Yeah, Julie Newmar to Lee Merriweather. Lee Merriweather's a great actress. Great actress. She did a lot of good stuff.